Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Chronic Report. I'm Nicole Stewart-Selleck, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Patrick Lynch. Good morning, Patrick. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
Good.
Good.
Yeah. Well, today we have Janis Gioia joining us. She is the creator and founder of a meditation product for kids called We Meditate. Janis is also a meditation and mindfulness teacher, and it is her passion to make meditation accessible for children. And she has a master's degree in special education and has taught children of all abilities from preschool through high school. And she's also an accomplished award-winning writer, and she has done all of her work based on the latest research on meditation and has combined this with creative storytelling. Welcome, Janis. We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Nicole and Patrick, it's nice to be here.
Good deal. Good to have you here. So, Jang, you've been a teacher for many years. How many years have you taught, and what's your student population like? Who are they?
Right now, I am not teaching. I am full-time working in We Meditate. I was
Nice.
a special education teacher and also a Title I teacher. So I don't know
Okay.
if you're familiar with Title I, but it is a government program that is in urban school districts to help support children from more marginalized communities. So I taught children in the Title I program. I'm in their early prevention of school failure program. And then I also taught special ed to children from preschool into high school.
Nice.
So, what
Sounds
I
good.
understand is you created a type of meditation for your students. Can you explain to us how that came about?
I've been a meditator probably really almost all my life. Probably I found meditation in my teen years. It was so helpful to me when I started teaching. Again, many of my children in the urban school system that I taught had very disadvantaged home lives. Children in the foster care system, I had a few children with incarcerated siblings or parents. I had children with food and home scarcity. It was a very advantaged population that I worked with, and many of the children that I worked with were gang member wannabes. They really wanted community, and brothers and sisters were in gangs, and have always really been into wildlife and nature through my meditation. So I created, which became a book, the Wolfpack Classroom Management Plan. Actually won the Ben Franklin Award for Best Education Book in 2010. But through that, I created, my entire classroom was nature, and we were always meditating through stories with nature as part of a wolf pack. The wolf pack was basically, they wanted to be in a gang. So I kind of created our own community, but it was a positive community in our classroom, which was all decorated with posters and wildlife posters and rivers, just everything to kind of bring nature into this very sort of classroom with, like the kind of prison walls that are painted manila, like cinder blocks. I mean, it was not
Right.
and I just tried to really make it this beautiful, calming place. And I didn't use the word meditation with them. I used relaxation because I don't know that I would have been allowed to say I was teaching them meditation. But before we would begin learning, we would do all kinds of things. We would do breath work. We would do progressive muscle relaxation. We would use a lot of scent meditation. I had, I don't know if you're familiar with therapy dough, but it's a scented dough that I got in one of my special ed catalogs. And it had different scents. So we'd inhale the scent and we'd feel the clay. And we would just do a lot of meditation and mindfulness things. I would also tell them stories in this little wooded room with the posters, our little wooded wonderland. And through the stories, we would meditate. Everybody would kind of calm down. It would help with their ADHD, their anxiety, a lot of anger. My children had a lot of anger issues. And once we were calm and relaxed, it fostered relaxation, kindness, community, and they were so much more easily able to learn.
What was the average age of the students at the time where you were using these methods?
I began my Wolfpack and meditation program with those children, teaching pre-kindergarten to third grade. It was a resource room. So it wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
the children came to me at different times. Many times they came to me when their teachers were like, I can't take this anymore, go see Mrs. Gioia. So
Mm-hmm.
resource room, that they had their set learning times, and I worked on their IEP goals with them. A lot of times they came to me if they were having a bad day. And the thing was, is I love these children. I mean, I love them. And so many of the teachers in the building would say, oh, we give you the ones that we just can't stand to work with. I don't know how you do this with them. And try to share with them some of the things that I did. And I don't know if maybe in the bigger classroom weren't able to do it or they didn't want to, but these children just thrived. I mean, it was just amazing to see. And it was the meditation. It wasn't me. It was just teaching them how to love themselves and accept things in their life as they were. Um, Gave them hope and positivity. It was wonderful to see.
That's awesome. It's beautiful. Jen, can you provide an example of the trajectory, in terms of when you start teaching the new class of kids this meditation exercise, and how they start, and what type of results that you see after, maybe a week, and then what type of results you see after maybe a month, and then 2 months, and then 3 months? What kind of changes do you see?
Interesting. So when I first would start every year with a new group of students, and some of them I would have year after year, but very transient. A lot of kids would come in and out.
Hmm.
Definitely a lot of foster children in the school where I taught would first start out, and they would have either their therapy dough or squish balls or whatever fidget toys I would let them hold. It would first be a little bit of chaos because they weren't used to this kind of freedom. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember my principal had walked past, come in at the very beginning of the year, and there were people squishing play. They were kind of a little, and I was like, I told her, I said, it's okay. They need to get familiar. This is new to them. They're not used to having this. And so then I would say, okay, now we're going to use this for breathing, or we're going to use this for the texture, or squishing it in our hands, or doing some muscle. So at first, it was very new to them. And it was kind
Sure.
of like, it was like they've never done anything like this before. And, we're not going to relax and that kind of thing. But in time, like after maybe the third day, then it wasn't so novel having, therapy dough to hold, and doing breathing. Because at first, I'm going to say they would clown around a little, and I would try to
Oh,
teach
yeah,
them how to breathe. And, they'd be doing it silly breathing, and, falling
for
out of our
sure.
chair breathing. I mean, again, this was special ed and kids with some real behavior problems, even at a young age. So it was a little silly. I'd say the first week it was a little silly. The second week, a little more serious. And a month in, they were pretty much getting the hang of it. But I remember we had one boy who had a very troubled home life. It's just a very sad story with him. He constantly would draw a picture of a car, and he would say, this was the day my dad left. So this was always on his mind. And so he was being real silly. And one of the boys, Patrick, said to him, Drew, stop this. This is our relaxation time. So I knew then this really means, like, this kid did not want this other kid goofing off and messing with it,
Yeah.
the time. And again, this wasn't something that we did the whole time that I had them. This was just something we
Hmm.
would do for like the first 5 minutes. I would
Sure.
say by the first month, even less than the first month, it was really making a difference. And then their teachers were telling me, their regular classroom teachers, I was a specialist, they do some of this on their own, or, they were seeing a difference with them. And even some of their parents would tell me,
Mm-hmm.
up time, what do you do with them? Like, why are they, doing better with this? Or he doesn't hit as much as he used to. So it was just kind of progressively helping them. And by the end of every year, even the semester, there was such a
Yes.
difference in the children. In fact, what was meaningful things to me was at the end of one of the years, students, and again, we meditated in that classroom as part of a wolf pack. So until we meditate, my meditation platform, it was all with forest animals. But in my wolf pack, we focused on, meditating and being part of this wolf pack where we all work together. And again, I did not teach in a wealthy school district by any means at all. And at the end of one of the school years, the parents of all my students had gotten together and they sponsored a wolf in the name of me and the classroom at the local zoo. And so it had a plaque and it was for, Mrs. Joya's Wolf Pack class. They gave me a certificate, like, thank you for teaching us how to meditate with the wolves. And that was actually for a year. We see that at the zoo, and they donated money to get that. And then it was like feeding the wolves that year at the zoo. So that was really beautiful to me, especially because this was not a wealthy demographic that I taught. For them to all do that together was just incredible to me.
Jan, I'm wondering, the kids clearly loved it, benefited from it. What was the reception like with the school district? It sounds like this is kind of experimental. Did you have good reception, and what about parent reaction as well?
Parents, again, very difficult family lives. I was a teacher, and even our school, that on open house night, you could have rolled a bowling alley or a bowling ball down the hallway because people really didn't come. The parents typically did not have a good experience themselves with school. Again, very tough demographic. School, I never talked that I was teaching them meditation because certain I think now the schools have a certain thing that's getting into religion or some sort of spirituality, when really it's secular, it's breath work. There's a whole lot of things to it. So I always called it relaxation time. And at first, my one principal was quite skeptical. She was real supportive in a lot of ways, but she came by several times and she was like, what you're doing with these kids is remarkable. She's like, this is remarkable. And so I noted she, again, wasn't really asking me to teach the staff to do any of the things. It was more like, this is what I'm doing in my classroom. And it was working well because they were having less trouble than in their regular education classrooms by the things that I was teaching them. Or when they were having issues, like even during assembly, sometimes they would send them back to my room and then I would, work with them. So definitely I've noticed the difference in the principal. And I did hear, like I said, from parents, like the ones that joined together to sponsor the wolf in my name, that they would tell me that the children were much less reactional at home, and they didn't use the word better emotional regulation, but they noticed it and expressed that to me as well.
Awesome.
Did it catch on? How did it gain momentum from that point on?
I had been the Wolfpack classroom for many, many years, and my special education supervisor said to me, this should probably be a book. Like, this should, be out there somewhere. So then I did turn it into a book. That's helped in a lot of ways to bring it to more classrooms because the book it's not in print now, but I still have the book. So I still sell the book every year and get a lot of questions from teachers on how to, incorporate that style of teaching. And then it won the Ben Franklin Award, which is a pretty big book award. It was funny because we went to New York City. I was told I was one of the top 3 finalists. And we were up in a very big ballroom, I think at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. And it was my husband and my kids, they were younger at the time. And the way they did it, they had this big Jumbotron screen, and they had each of the 3 book covers. When they announced the winner, the other 2 went away, and we were sitting there, and literally the Wolfpack thing went up. It was like amazing. And then at that, people were really interested, and oh my gosh, this is the teacher that does meditation with wolves. So it was kind of, really cool and very interesting to me that the judges had chosen that book. Because I was up with someone had written a book about LeBron James, which, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm up against someone in that category. It was like an educational book about his life or something, but it won. And so to me, then it kind of realize that there really is something to this, that It's not being done in a lot of schools. It wasn't really being done at that time. I was kind of like the OG meditation person, but
Mhm.
I was seeing that it really did have a lot of impact.
Did you see an impact in the homes when children had been practicing this practice for the first 5-10 minutes of class every day after 3 or 4 or 5 months, or even into the school year or towards the end of the school year? Did you see a progression at home of some kind? Did you see changes at home, the homes of these children?
I was told by many of the social workers, a lot of our children, social workers involved, caseworkers with the families, and many times they had told me more in the middle of the year. They said, wow, what you've done has really made a difference in their lives. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because we, again, as a Title I / special ed teacher, we had a lot of with social services. So they definitely, I think their hands were really full, because I would try to say, this would be really great if you guys could get a program. And they would, oh yeah, yeah, we'll have to do that. But I do think that they did notice it with the children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just recently in the news, like a week ago, there was a story that went viral about a mother who had an autistic child with her. She went to a Houston's restaurant, I believe, a chain, and the child was having some trouble settling himself. And the server refused to service the table and asked the family to leave. This seems to be a growing problem. A lot of people with children on the spectrum having issues with regulating stress and whatnot in public, and the big problem of people who don't understand that. There's a lot of discrimination, I would say, going on with people with children like this. For one, do you see that, and do you agree with my assessment? And two, how would meditation or methods like this help families?
I agree. There is a lot of discrimination for children on the spectrum with any kind of behavior disorders. I research study many years ago that talked about the children that are the most abused physically and mentally, but it was a study on physical abuse of children. And the highest rate of children that are abused are children with spectrum disorders, behavior disorders, uh, much higher. There's, let's say, for example, the study talked about children with Down syndrome versus children with like SBH, or severe behavior handicap or disability, SPD. Uh, they have so much more discrimination, and people are very afraid of them, and because of that, there are people are afraid of them in public. They're afraid of them in the school system. So I have seen that many, many times, and I agree with you. And yes, meditation can totally help children like this. And I say this because I have taught many children with autism. I've taught children with very severe behavior problems. The difference, though, it's not that a child is in a meltdown, a child is acting out, and you're like, hey, let's breathe. Like, no, that is not how it works. Now, if they have been taught meditation and it is a practice that they have done and they have it as something that they know that they can do, you can bring that up. But once a child has totally melted down, you really have to wait until that meltdown stops. And then you can try to get them more centered, more grounded, more focused. But meditation has to be taught to them in times when they are calm, not when they're reactional. But with that said, if they are having a reaction, you might be able to give them a cue like breathe. You might be able to see, depending on how the meltdown is, if they would want something soft to hold or something to comfort them. But meditation really should be taught to all children, especially with disabilities. For children with autism, nostril breathing, which can be a little trickier to teach. It requires maybe not a lot of coordination, but if that can be taught, that really somehow, and I'm not a doctor, but I know that it does something to balance like the left and right hemispheres of the brain, breathing in and out in the different nostrils. But again, that has to be something that is taught to children in advance. And what happens is, at least in my experience, when a child gains the meditation skills, they have less activity, they have better emotional regulation, and they are able to stop themselves before they get to that point, or you are able to help them come down before they reach that point. And I'm thinking in the restaurant example, I had not heard that. Probably like maybe a type of misophonia or a sensory sensitivity, probably too many people, maybe too hot, too many light sounds, maybe they were hungry. So I think a lot of times to blame a parent, but it's, are you putting your child in a situation that they possibly can't handle? You know, taking them to the mall tired and hungry, a lot of sounds, smells, lights, everything, and then they don't have anywhere to turn, and so they just melt down. And that could be a child with or without autism spectrum disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, you've taught meditation to an interesting population of people, and not only an interesting population, but probably the most challenging population of people to teach meditation. And I really appreciate your approach on how to get them to relax first by just focusing on something, having something to squeeze or, focus and concentrate on and evolve after that. Have you ever had a child that sticks in your mind who you saw and noticed the first week of school where you felt as if, man, there is not going to be anything that I'm going to be able to do to help this child. This child may not even make it in school. He or she might be gone after a couple of weeks. This kid is just a complete, emotional and mental disaster, but we'll give it a try. And then have you seen, a path where this child finally embraced the work, did the work, and evolved into like, wow, I'm a different person now. And this is amazing.
So that the child that you're talking about is actually the child that the catalyst for me to create We Meditate.
Nice.
Doing my graduate work for my master's degree in special ed, I was assigned a caseload, and one of the students that I was given was a little boy named Max. I was in an urban school district and not really the best environment for him. But when I walked in, pointed him out to me, and he was it was a little like something out of a bad movie. He was more at a table far away from everyone else, and he was really angrily trying to push pegs into a pegboard. I was told by the aide in the classroom that he is blind. He is fully behaved, and he is losing his ability to walk. She said he's angry, and she said no one can teach him. The best thing you can hope to do is occupy him. You will not get anywhere with him. No one can. Like, great. Here I am in my first day, in this field experience. So I sat down with him, and boy, he was angry. And he didn't want to hear anything that I had to say. And I also didn't have a whole lot of experience teaching a child who was blind. I had some children with vision impairment, but not that were fully blind like he was. So he was very angry. And at first I was like a little bit nervous. Like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, what am I supposed to do with him? They gave me a list of his IEP goals. Like, basically, here they are, but you're going to get nowhere with him. It was kind of like, okay, it's first day and a little nervous. And so very angry, pushing things around, going to start throwing pegs. And of course, other people in the room, other specialists were kind of looking over at me. And I was like, meditate. We've got to do something. So I looked around the room, and it was a early childhood primary school special ed classroom. So there were a lot of toys around. So I grabbed a bunch of stuffed animals and things that he could hold.
Nice.
Fisher Price little people characters from a farm. So to him, I said, I'd like to meditate and relax with me. And it kind of just took him by surprise.
Yeah.
So I said, you're going to hold some of these animals here, and I gave them names. Like, again, I've been storytelling my whole life, so this wasn't like something, I've done it in all my other classrooms, but not kind of in this situation where I felt really under pressure. And so I began telling him a meditation story. You're going to do the things along with your friends here. And so, I'd name the different people and I put him in the story as kind of like a superhero. And the superhero, that was his name, Max, was going to relax his muscles and he was going to take a big breath in and he was going to do all these different things in the story with the characters. It was kind of a long story, but as I was doing it, and he was an adorable little fella, he had this little mop of curly hair, and I could see it in him, because when I came to start working, the tension, the anger, I mean, he was very agitated. I could see him start to relax as I went through this story. And when the story was over, and then I was going to lead him into learning some of the things. I think we were working on recognizing his name, because he was going to start working with a Braille teacher at one point. He said, "Tell me another story." And so loved it. He loved it. So every day when I went in to work with him, we would start first with a meditation story, and then we would go into his IEP goals. And it was going so well that I got permission from my graduate advisor and his principal to rewrite his curriculum into stories. So it was,
Nice.
we started with meditation first, always, to calm him down. We would go into his learning goals. The boy that they said would learn nothing that year met every single IEP goal that he had.
All right.
Amazing. And it wasn't me. He was able to relax, because once he could relax and he wasn't angry and stressed, he could learn. And the reason he became the catalyst for We Meditate was, as I walked into the building, I heard the little tapping of his cane coming down the hall. As I turned the corner and got by his classroom, he said to me, because he knew, I don't know, he knew it was me, and he said, "Mrs. Gioia, are we going to meditate today?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Yes, sir, all right." And it was like, at that moment, I was like, it really is transformative. Like, I'd seen it with all my other students, but he was really, I would say intellectually, he was quite bright. He was a very bright little boy, but he had Batten disease. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Yeah. Are you familiar with that, Dr. Lynch?
No, I'm not.
Very rare illness. It's a terminal illness that comes on, I think, in earlier childhood, and it becomes very debilitating. I think many children have it, and I'm not sure that there's much of a cure for it. But he knew that he really was losing all these different abilities. Meditation, because of all the different benefits, I think gave him kind of an escape and a distraction, and a sense to feel some power over his body that he really felt that he couldn't control. So while intellectually, I think he was quite bright, disability-wise, he was one of the most profound students, with blindness and his motor functioning and everything else. So it was really wonderful to see.
Do you know how he's doing now?
The last I'd heard many years ago, he wasn't doing well, so I'm not sure if he's still with us, but he honestly, he was a light, and I think back on him with such love and gratitude, because he taught me really how much meditation could really do for a child, especially a child with emotional distress, aggression, anger, anxiety, and then these really debilitating physical that even his parents would tell me he uses it at home. Like, I've met with him many times because he was meeting his goals, and they were so surprised. And they're like, he does this at home. And then later I realized there's nothing like this out there for kids. And so that's why I created accessible meditation, so that every child could meditate.
Yes. Batten disease, it comes to mind as a neurological disease that affects the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and the brain. And a lot of times there can be an environmental toxin and or a pathogen involved, causing degeneration of the nervous system. And unless that is addressed, the main line of allopathic treatment is to help manage people as the disease gets worse over time until they finally degenerate and die. So that's unfortunate, but at the same time, you brought a lot of good things to his life and helped him, have peace and joy. And like you said, it sounds like he was a light himself, and I'm sure he was.
Yeah, he was an amazing little boy. And I think for me, meditate, chronic illness myself, it's been so important for me to be able to teach children. We work with nonprofits that serve children with pediatric cancer, with very serious illnesses, and knowing how much meditation has helped me with my chronic illness, it's wonderful for me to see it doing so much to bring peace and comfort into other lives that, people don't often think their child can meditate, but they can. They just need to learn how to do it.
Right. It takes understanding, it takes somebody like you who knows how to meditate and knows how to get the mind to a more place of stillness. So it's awesome.
So, Jan, why don't you tell us about your We Meditate program? How does it work?
So We Meditate is a meditation platform for teaching meditation to children through a storybook world. So We Meditate has a magical dragon who is the meditation teacher, and he teaches his forest animal friends, each who have a disability, an illness, or a mental health challenge, how to meditate. So each character there's different ways children with disabilities or illnesses can meditate. For example, Owl is often ill, so his meditations help children cope with symptoms of illness. One Owl in the Magic Tunnel, or Owl, the Magic Tunnel is actually an MRI machine, and it teaches them how to use visualization and relaxation for an MRI. Character Fox has anxiety. So basically, his meditations are for any child, and it teaches them different ways to use meditative practices. Anxiety. Bunny has ADHD. So a lot of her meditations are moving meditations to teach meditation to children who can't often sit still. Her is deaf, and her meditations are either captioned or they're in our magical movie theater and they're signed in American Sign Language. Is our neurodivergent character. He has autism and cerebral palsy, so he also uses wheels. Meditations help children with emotional regulation, frustration tolerance, children with misophonia, sensitivity to sound, or sensory processing disorders. So each character really has something for every child, because we all have a little bit of misophonia and we all have a little bit of sensitivity. So it's basically to be inclusive, because I've heard from so many parents, well, my child can't meditate. Well, that's because they Google an image or they see this image of either a parent and child or a child, and they're in this perfect little white outfit with their hands in a mudra position sitting on a beach. And,
Right.
their eyes are closed and they think, my kid can't do that. I can't do that. And so my goal with We Meditate was thinking about Max and all the other children over the years that I've taught meditation through stories. Like adults, love listening to stories. Who doesn't? You just, someone says, I'm going to tell you a story, and you're all in. So it teaches the children almost in a community with stories, all the different research-based meditation practices, like breath work, guided imagery, visualization, progressive muscle relaxation. But they're all learning it with the character in a story. So it's not, times even on YouTube videos, meditation will be taught for children, but it doesn't really bring them into it. It kind of just tells them what to do. Meditate and feel they are part of something with these animals, and all children love and relate to animals, and they're doing it all along with almost like a buddy. So that is what We Meditate is. It's meditation in a storybook world. We have guided story meditations, we have bedtime stories, we have mini meditations, because micro meditation is getting a lot of press and research lately on, it's not the amount of time you meditate all in one sitting. It can be little bursts of meditative activity throughout the day. So we have mini meditations too. We have beautifully composed meditation music musicians have created for us just for a calming soundscape while children are being mindful, coloring, therapy dough, stringing beads, that kind of thing.
That was when I went through the demo that you sent me. That was one of the things that was really outstanding to me. The quality of the music, the voice actors that you hired to do the readings, it was amazing. I actually used the music section when I was working the other day, and I loved it. And I'm an adult. Would you say that this is really for everyone, even though you have it child centered?
I, initially being a special ed person, I really just envisioned this for, my demographic of teaching, little ones with special needs. That was my thing, children with disabilities, illnesses, etc. And so I had an email right after we launched, and someone had said, they sent it to our, hello at We Meditate, and they were like raving about how much they loved it. And so I just emailed them back and I said, how old is your little one? Just because kind of wanting to get in, like, know who's using this. And they emailed me back and they said, I'm using this myself. I'm an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, like, and I was like, wow, like I never really thought of that. And then I had another mother up to me. Actually, she was in Florida, and said to me, thank you so much for your program. She said, I'm using this with my 30-year-old daughter who has, she said she does have disabilities, but she has severe depression. And so that was very, again, my little dragon world, I did not picture it for adults. And then
Right.
the last few weeks we heard from someone who I was very surprised as well. It was a man, and he told me in an email that he was a suicide survivor. He liked Dragon's World. So those three, I was very, again, that was not what I envisioned for it, but I was just so and so grateful that this little world bringing comfort to people that I wouldn't have even thought that it would bring comfort to them. So that was so meaningful to me.
What do you think it is about it that's appealing? I know for me, it was just so beautiful, and the sound and the music, everything about it just brought out not only relaxation, but it took me away. It was just wonderfully done. But what do you think the secret ingredient is? What is the appeal?
I think, I mean, this is going to sound kind of woo-woo, but I kind of think the secret ingredient to it, again, I have a chronic illness. I've had a chronic illness for 26 years that I deal with every day. And meditation is like a gift to me. And I think that because of that, I almost have infused, I feel like, the meditation with like a lot of love and a lot of like, I want everyone to experience this in the storybook world. I think is really calming. I mean, it's distracting, it's peaceful. The sounds of the river. I think I evoke a lot of nature, like I did in my classroom all those years ago. And I think people are just maybe looking for an escape. And so it's the storybook world. I think that it's cohesive. Like, I know one mom said she was using We Meditate with her child, and I can't remember which character the child really liked. But then they did another meditation, and the kid was so excited because, bear showed up in it, or fox or something, because the characters go in and out. So it is kind of like almost like a cartoon where it's not meditation in isolation. There's different characters. And I know there's one meditation where Bunny is causing all kinds of chaos, and then Weasel gets upset with her. And, it's kind of, I think for children, it's very real. I think that maybe even for adults, maybe brings up some inner child kind of thing, and it just is comforting for that reason, maybe.
I think it's brilliant. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Patrick. I just was wondering about the research. I know there's been you're basing this on research that's been done. Can you tell us a little bit about the research behind the connection between meditation and children?
There is a lot of research being done around the world right now at top medical institutions on the benefits of meditation. I mean, it's a centuries old, thousands of years old practice for a reason, right? There's something to it. And so now science is really looking into it, mostly for adults who have been the main ones that they have studied. So I have based the practices in We Meditate on the latest research in meditation, what works, people all the skills that they need to have a good, solid meditation practice. But there are at least 3 big studies that have been done now. One was in Italy, teaching meditation and mindfulness to children in primary grades and how much it helped with stress relief, anxiety, or emotional regulation. There was also a study done out of Baltimore in an urban school district using meditation. I believe it was also with primary school children. The correlation between children that practice mindfulness meditation and better learning outcomes, less acting out behaviors in the classroom, better focus. And then there was a third big study done with children showing how meditation helps relieve stress and improve learning outcomes, basically because of its effect. A brain learns better than a brain that's stressed. But for adults, there's research all over the place, being used for adults with, cancer, heart disease, high blood pressure. It's being used in, major teaching hospitals around the world who are studying it, but mostly it's studied in adults.
Jan, I think what you've created is incredible. I think it's amazing. I've been meditating on and off for over 30 years now, and I used to teach meditation as well. And, with what you're doing, one of the things that I see and you, I'm sure you see as well, you have children who, they have disabilities, they have stress, they come from families who are significantly challenged. And so, when that happens, people and children, they have a hard time breathing. They don't necessarily have a natural rhythm of breath. And I can see how when you tell a story in a classroom that helps grab the attention of the children, and as they get excited about the story and they get into the story and they listen to it and they become a part of it, their body relaxes as they just begin to release and just begin to breathe naturally. They're not, they release their tension, they release their breath, and then, the natural breathing pattern takes place. And when the natural breathing pattern takes place, then, like you said, using, techniques like alternate nostril breathing can be the next step in terms of making further advancements. So how you start is just genius like. It's incredible, so I can see why it fits the certain type of population. We meditate. However, I think that it suits a lot of different populations. Down syndrome, people with Down syndrome, I can imagine, there's a delay in maturity. And I can see even people with Down syndrome well into their 20s, practice We Meditate in a community and probably have a pretty good time doing it. So at any rate, I just wanted to commend you for your work and good job. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. It's
Absolutely.
such a when I put it out there into the world, I was kind of like, this is very meaningful to me and meaningful to my students.
For sure.
Hearing how even now with the different people that I hear from We Meditate, how much it's helping children facing very challenging life circumstances. It's just wonderful to just that it's out there doing what I intended for it to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yes.
So currently, where is We Meditate being used? In schools, clinics, or?
Now, We Meditate has a family membership. It's a membership website right now. We're hoping to become an app. for families or for organizations. So for organizations, right now we are being used by several nonprofits, some that are direct service providers in that they have We Meditate and their therapists are using it with the children that they provide services to. And we're used by other nonprofits, medical setting where they're able to have a membership, and then the children that are receiving medical care use We Meditate with them. So we're in families and organizations and hoping to get into schools and hospitals as well. That's my dream for We Meditate, is to get it into some research studies. And I have been in contact with 2 hospitals that seem to be interested, but those, I've learned, take a very long time, especially when it's with children, getting all the permission and the consent and how to do research studies. But that really is my dream, is to have it like, in a hospital, how there's like hospital, like closed radio or whatever. Like I would love
Right.
to have We Meditate in a hospital. And again, we're very new. I'm just kind of learning this whole entrepreneur thing. I'm more of a special ed teacher and a meditation teacher, so I'm trying to learn how to do all of this, the business end of it, and to really get it out there, because that's definitely not my strength. Meditation, yes, I can teach meditation probably to anybody, but learning the business and how to get it marketed is something I need to learn how to do better. But we're starting to make progress.
Well, Jan, if you ever want any resources or any ideas on how to successfully conduct a large study and have government grants supporting the study, let me know. I'd be happy to help set you up with a good trajectory on that.
Yes, I would appreciate that. That's kind of like an area that I don't really know how to get into. I greatly appreciate that. I will definitely reach out to you for that. Thank you. Because I know that, the thing is, like, I know that it works. Like, I have no doubt that it works, and I've seen it work. And I would just like to take it to a greater scale. It's just, there's so many children that are ill. There's so many children that
Yeah.
have pain and they can't sleep, or, a child that's alone in a hospital room. I love hearing from a parent that said, we were really sad to leave, whether they're going back to like a Ronald McDonald House type. We left them on their iPad with We Meditate, and they had their headset on, and and I know that they're going off to meditate with Dragon, and and it calms the parents down as well, and then a lot of the families we found is families, the child who is ill and in the hospital, but using We Meditate with the children that are at home, because there's a lot of stress for the children whose sibling is seriously ill. That's kind of been another secondary market for us, is nonprofits that serve the siblings of ill children, which has been, really nice. Our character Turtle deals with grief and loss,
Mm-hmm.
which is those children either that are in the hospital that are missing their loved ones at home, or the children who maybe even, sadly, I know one of our nonprofits recently lost a child, and knowing that it's supporting those children with meditative practices to feel still connected through grief and loss. So that's, meditation for trauma is something I'm really interested in as well. So it's
Yes.
just very meaningful. There's just so many ways that it can touch lives, and it's just my goal is to just grow it as much as I can.
And it may not be that you do a study. You may get connected to the point to where this needs to be taught in schools now. And, meditation, like you said, it's universal. It doesn't have to be attached to a spirituality or a religion or anything like that. And in fact, it can take people closer to their religion and spirituality. So, it's the sky's the limit with what you're doing. And I think just, meeting the right people, getting in with the right people, especially school systems, the federal government, who knows? But I see great potential for this.
I really hope so.
Me too.
Jan, I'm just wondering, is this an app or is this on the internet? How usable is this, and what kind of applications can people expect with it?
Now we are a website that functions like an app, which took quite some time to get right. Took 3 web developers to get that right. So it is a website. You log into We Meditate. It functions like an app in that you can do it with a black screen. You can do it on, a tablet, desktop, on a phone. Just log in, and then you have access to the. We do have free content as well, but then you can access our entire library. I know that it's quite portable because I know We Meditate is actually doing quite well over in the EU, especially in Ireland. They meditate, I guess, quite a bit in Ireland. And I've heard from several families, including a mom who said that they were traveling and they landed at Heathrow, the big airport in England, and it was very crowded. But they had We Meditate on for their child, a child,
Mhm.
neurotypical child, and she did We Meditate there, and then they got on the plane and she was We Meditating, and then some parents had commented, wow, this, and she's 4 or 5 years old, a little girl, and she did super well on the plane, and then they had to take a couple of trains to wherever they were going, and she was on the train, and people were saying to the mom, my goodness, how is she so peaceful, because everybody was like totally frazzled, and she was just kind of
Right.
in her little We Meditate world. So this little girl was using it on her tablet, so it
Hmm.
functions very much like an app. We have plans to make it an app, but still need to get the funds to do that. But that is definitely our goal, and also a goal of mine is to get it in more sign language, different languages of sign language, and also to get it in different languages as well.
Hmm. That sounds amazing.
So is the app called We Meditate?
We with 2 E's, we meditate.com.
Gotcha.
Is there anything we haven't asked you that you would like to share about We Meditate?
Just, that if all parents could realize that even if they are not meditating themselves, I think it's especially the younger parents. I'm a parent of adult children, they're out of college. I think a lot of parents now have a lot of pressure. I hear it from younger moms, to Instagram moms, that there's a lot of pressure on them to do to cook, organic baby food and to feed everybody right, just to do everything perfect. And I think that they get a sense of meditation as a stressor. That, oh my gosh, I should be meditating and my child should be meditating, and it kind of gets this anxiety going for them. And I think I would like parents to know that meditation is really, it's not about forcing, it's about flowing. It's very peaceful and gentle, and it's not something that you need to pressure on yourself about. It's something that you can so easily bring into your life and your child's life, especially through a platform like We Meditate. It doesn't have to meditate, but it's not about forcing, it's flowing, and it just can lead to parents feeling so much better, and the children as well. I mean, it leads to lower heart rate and positivity and optimism and less depression and so many good things that I think if they would, easy to do, and that's why I've tried to make it so easy, and just to take the pressure off of themselves and just to kind of let meditation their life, and they can see that it is not, you don't have to have, you know certain kind of cushions and all this kind of stuff. It is just something you can just do, and once you have the skills, you can do it anywhere. I mean, I children meditate on a school bus, in a noisy cafeteria. It's something that they can even do at a mall or something, and their child's having a meltdown. If they have the skills, they can maybe pull their child aside somewhere and hey, remember when we meditated at home and you knew how to breathe? Or maybe remember, that's one thing I've heard from so many parents, is they can bring up the characters. So, well, remember that story where Raccoon was doing this, or remember this, be like Raccoon now, and it kind of triggers, oh yeah, because to the kids sometimes, little ones, they kind of, the characters are real to them, like they're not, they're still in their, depending on their age, they're still in their fantasy thinking stages. And so to them, yeah, that was what Weasel did, or that's what, Fox did. And so I think parents just really need to see it's not something to put more pressure on you. It's not, like the parent shaming, like if your child's not meditating. It's just this peaceful, gentle way to really enhance your life and your child's life and your family's life. And if there's illness
Mhm.
or a mental health challenge, just is so much more comfort to your family. So I would just like people to know that it's not something to add like, oh my gosh, not now I got to add meditation to my to-do
Mhm.
list and I'm already behind. It's just something that once you start doing it and your children are doing it, it just becomes something that you really want to do. Like Max, like, are we going to meditate again? It's not on your to-do list. It should be a routine. You need to do it like brushing your teeth, or taking a shower or a bath. I mean, it's not like a one and done, but it's something that, enhances your overall well-being and that of your family. So I would just like them to know that about meditation.
Awesome.
Right.
Absolutely. I remember just to, reflect off, what you're saying about routine and looking forward to it rather than thinking that you have to force it. With me, I got to a point I would wake up at 4 o'clock every morning to meditate. And, I would meditate when it was dark out. I would start when it was dark outside, before the birds and, all the noises of, Mother Nature and the outside and inside were happening. It was just really quiet then, um, and then, finishing meditation when the sun was coming up. It was just a really special time of day. And it got to the point to where when I first started meditating at 4 o'clock in the morning, that was the time that I had. So I did have to force myself to meditate at 4, but I wanted to. And then so like it took me like, I don't know, 10 days of, being kind of groggy, waking up, splashing some water on my face, getting down on my meditation cushion and, meditating kind of half asleep and then kind of waking up as I moved through it. And it got to the point to where after, 10 days or so that my eyes would just pop open and I would feel this draw to my meditation cushion in my meditation room. And I would just get up and go and then move through the practice and go deep. And from then on, that was my practice for many years, and it was just pretty cool, pretty amazing.
That. Well, I think it's 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Research says is when your pineal gland is more open. So for a lot
Yeah.
of people that want to do like third eye, meditation and go really deep,
Oh,
that is
yeah,
like the time to really do that.
for
I
sure.
love that though. I like to meditate either early in the morning or I live actually in Colorado and
Hmm.
there's a place near our neighborhood. It's quite high and there's some stone benches and I love to meditate and look at the Rocky Mountains. Like that's like,
Nice.
that is like so cool and to watch the different colors on the mountains. And I've tried to bring that into our We Meditate world. It's kind of almost like, a little Rocky Mountain woodland there. But I love that.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, you're in God's country over there for sure. Yeah. Well, wonderful. It's been a really big pleasure
Mhm.
speaking with you and learning about your work and learning about you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
I'd be grateful if they, followed We Meditate maybe on Instagram and have I know that meditation, I want meditation to be accessible for everyone. So we have something called Dragon's Meditation Club, which is an email newsletter for parents, or we have many professionals that sign up for it too, um, mostly written to children. So basically, it's like getting a picture book meditation in your email times a month. So they can sign up for that on our website. And I've tried to keep the cost of We Meditate low so that it is accessible for many families. Um,
Great.
Also, if they join Dragon's Meditation Club, um, it's always really popular because our open rate is great, and we have people that sometimes 10 and 15 times. So I know it's really being used with kids. So if they'd like to sign up for that, I'd like them to know that that's just a free option where they can narrated by our fabulous voiceover artist. Um, They can read a meditation story to their child or have a mini meditation. It's available for free.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, Jan.
Thank you. It's been so nice to be on with you. And thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.